Good morning, TBC. Pastor Zach here. Hope you had a wonderful Easter filled with joy, filled with peace, hopefully a little chocolate, and you just had a great time rejoicing in the resurrection, rejoicing in the fact that Jesus is making all things new. God is so good, and I hope you had a wonderful Easter. And I'm really excited to share something that God's been stirring in my heart, and that's just this concept of remembering or creating a space to remember. When I was reading the resurrection story in Luke the other day, this really popped out to me and really challenged me. And it's when the women come to the tomb and they encounter two angels and they're scared. This is what happens. So this is in Luke 24, starting in verse 5. It said, "And as they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, the men or the angels, they said to them, 'Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified on the third day and rise.' And then they remembered his words. And returning from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and the other women who told these things to the apostles. But their words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. Or in other words, they didn't remember even what Jesus had told them. But Peter rose and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and he went home marveling at what had happened." So I love this because the angels, they tell the women, they tell Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joanna and the other women there, remember what Jesus said. And then they actually actively had to remember. You see, and when they put themselves in that place to remember, it stirred a faith into them where they went to the disciples, and while they didn't have a lot of luck in persuading many of them, it pushed Peter to run to the tomb to see that Jesus was gone and put him into a place of marveling. You see, when we remember our first love, when we remember the words of Jesus, when we remember what has been spoken over us, what Jesus has spoken over us, it changes our reality completely. It changes our perspective completely. And it also changes other people, just like it changed Peter at that time. You see, when we remember, when we take time to remember, it creates a better way for us to see his reality all around us. It gives us strength in times of confusion and puts everything in perspective and connects us directly with Jesus. See, Jesus thinks remembering is so important that is actually the last thing he tells us to do in the Great Commission. His last words to us in the book of Matthew actually are about remembering. It says in Matthew 28, verse 16, the Great Commission, "Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of age.'" And a lot of versions it says, "And remember, I am with you always to the end of age." You see, I love this because he's telling his disciples what to do. And actually, a lot of what he's telling them to do is to remember everything I commanded you to do and tell the nations to do it as well. Everything I've told you to do, I am asking you to remember and to teach the nations to do the exact same thing. But what I also love is he tells the disciples a lot of these ministry things to do. What is your calling? But also remember, I am with you always. Why does he tell them that? I think there's a lot of reasons he tells them to remember that he is with them always. One of them is because I know we are tempted every single day to forget that he is with us. And maybe not forget like, oh, we don't believe, or like, I forgot about you, Jesus, but to forget about his words over us. So it makes us doubt our identity. or forget that he is in charge of everything going on. And so we're letting maybe some negative news completely shape us compared to letting his words shape us. Or even in a different way, we could be doing all the stuff of being a Christian, but at the same time, forget our first love. And so Jesus here, he's saying, you know what, you're going to be doing some great things, but you need to take time to remember me, to remember your first love, because it changes everything. See, Jesus says this in the book of Revelations. The book of Revelation, in the beginning, Jesus talks to 7 churches. And one of those churches is Ephesus, and he says a lot of great things about the Ephesian church. He says they're doing great discerning who is a true apostle and who's not. And you're disliking the things that I dislike, and that's really great. And you're not getting weary. I love that. But he does tell the Ephesian church this heartbreaking thing, that they had forgotten their first love. And they needed to get back to that. And if they didn't, actually everything would change and what they had been given would be taken away from them. And I really believe that this is a season that Jesus is inviting his church, his bride, to remember his first love, their first love. And so my prayer for us, that we just take time during this season to remember that love, to treasure, to cherish Jesus, to remember why we're living the way we are living in the first place. And I know for me that when I put myself in this place, it's often a time of pruning. But it's a wonderful thing when Jesus prunes us, because he only prunes us to make us more fruitful. So those things that are growing from us or in us that are not of him, he can just quickly snip those away. And the things that are of him, that were just, created, that were purposed for love, just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. I believe this is really a time of getting our relationship right, back on track, deeper, stronger than ever with him. And my prayer for us is that when we remember this season, 10 years from now, we see it as one where we just grew deeper and deeper with Jesus, where we remember how we remembered and we fell back in love, deeper in love, stronger in love with our first love, Jesus. And I pray that this season is a testimony that will encourage us 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I just bless you with that. I just pray you have a wonderful day rejoicing in him. Love you guys. God bless.